Bam, we're live. And I was like, oh shit, is that me? Because that guy needed to turn the energy up a little bit. Do you think that do you think like is like this isn't on this podcast, this isn't like 100% me. This is like me turned up. You know what I mean? I mean it's kind of me, but it's a turned up version of me. You know what I mean by that?
I do. It's amped up.
Hi, Brian.
Hey guys, how you doing? Good morning.
Good. Awesome.
Good
Living
morning,
the
Brian.
dream. Just three dudes living the dream.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you guys had a good holiday.
Oh yeah, every day
Yes,
is good. I have how many kids do you have, Brian?
I have two. Do you want me to turn my camera vertical?
I want you to put it how you think you look most handsome.
I don't like being on camera to start with, so it doesn't matter to me.
No, there's not enough
don't
room
know.
for two people not to like the way they look. So that's my job. What are you talking about? Matt, what do you think? I like his camera.
That looks perfect. No, you look perfect.
Look at that room. Are you in a bar?
I'm in my home bar, yeah. It's kind of my
nice.
little man cave.
That's badass. That's awesome.
And what state are you in, Brian?
I'm in Virginia.
Awesome. Thanks for doing this. Did you think it was did we have the time? Did we have any scheduling issues? Did we have any time issues, or this is the right time that you thought?
No, it's perfect for me because I'll just kind of get my day going. So 7 a.m. Eastern would have been way too early for me. I don't know how you guys are up right now.
Well, when you asked how's your day going, I have three little boys. I have 2 4-year-olds and a 6-year-old, and I wake up every single morning like the only thing I can compare it to, as superficial as it sounds, is when I was graduating from high school. My mom bought me a truck, and I would wake up every morning and go look in the driveway and be like, holy cow, I have a Toyota truck. And it's like that. I run over, I get up, and I'm like, oh my God, I have 3 little boys. I can't even believe it. So every day is great. And that's why I do the podcast so early, so I can get this out of the way and then spend the day, wrestling boys.
Gotcha.
Virginia, by the way, I can't tell you how great it is that you did this. Thank you so much.
Oh, no problem.
I know dealing with people. So those of you who don't know, who are listening, Brian, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I can tell, what Brian does is Brian is the surrogate parent to many, many, many dreamers. And what I mean by that is he's taken on the immense, immense responsibility of guiding people through achieving their dreams. And most of these people, I believe their dreams is to be the best fighters in the world.
That's correct. Professional babysitting.
And I was looking up the word linchpin. I should have kept it up here. But basically, you're the linchpin in these people's lives. And maybe they have multiple linchpins, but there are these extremely, extremely talented people in a realm where they need to focus on their talents, and then you sort of point their talents to the right way. A linchpin, a person or thing vital to enterprise or organization. So imagine you want to be the world's best astronaut, and yet making a space shuttle that doesn't explode isn't your job. And that's Brian's job, Brian Butler's job. He is going to have the space shuttle so these fighters can get onto it, and then they have to get to space.
Yeah, I guess kind of, maybe, sometimes more valuable to some fighters than others. It's a manager's job is to just make sure that everything stays in line for the fighter. We can maximize their career, the length of their career, maximize the money in their career so that they can actually make a career out of it. And, it's kind of like, you don't, it's like insurance. You don't need a manager until you need a manager, and a lot of times that gets forgotten. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that nobody would ever know about. But I can tell you it is a full-time job, and it is 24/7.
And there's and this was fascinating as I started digging into some of the stuff that you've been through. There's a moral responsibility. And there's a level of integrity and moral responsibility that doesn't come with a lot of other jobs.
Well, I think that the moral responsibility is on the individual person, because you would hope that would carry through everywhere you go, but it doesn't. Unfortunately, there is a lot of dirtbags in this business. I have made it a mission to keep ourselves, above that fray. And yeah, we've been successful at doing it. But when I got into this business, I thought it was martial arts. I thought everybody was going to be respectful, all this stuff. But no, it's there's a lot of seedy people in it for sure.
There's a difference between selling someone a hamburger that you say is all beef and then it ends up being 50% soy because, it's just that one hamburger. And yeah, it doesn't show good character and it's lying. But like literally there's people's lives on the line in your business. I mean, it's no different than a doctor. I feel like what you're doing.
I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, doctors are, actually saving the person's life. I get the person to the cage or to the event, and it's on them to, once the door shuts, there's nobody in there but the athletes themselves. And I think that's why the sport is so great, because you never know. One punch with these little gloves can change the outcome for everything, even if there's a massive favorite. Everybody remembers when George St. Pierre fought Matt Serra, so it's what makes the sport great.
By the way, Brian, this is Matt. Matt's the producer of the show, and sometimes
Matt?
he sneaks onto the show. I don't know how he does that.
I just stay silent and hope he doesn't forget I'm on here. So,
or you hope I do forget.
I hope I do forget. That way I just get to stay on the whole time.
Brian, why is there an AU after do you pronounce your last name Butler?
Butler-Au. Au is my Chinese family name. I'm half Chinese and half Irish.
Wow.
So on my legal documents and stuff like that, I have the Au on there. Sometimes it gets dropped off, but I always try to remember it.
And who is Chinese, your mom or your dad?
My dad. My mom is Irish, like fresh off the boat, Irish from Tipperary. So.
Oh, wow. And where did they meet? What state did they met in New York or?
No. They met in London. I was born in Hong Kong.
Oh, wow. And when did you come to the States?
So my parents got divorced when I was like 6, and then my mom moved us to Canada, and we lived in Canada for a few years. And I came to Virginia when I was in the 6th grade, and then she married my stepfather Al, who's a phenomenal person. And we were military brats. So then I went to school in Spain for 2 years, lived in Somalia for 2 years, Singapore, kind of all over the place.
Wow.
Yeah, it's nuts, huh? Now I'm starting to understand something else that I saw. The pieces are starting to come together. What was the word you used? You said your mom was fresh off the boat in Tipperary. What was that word you used?
Tipperary.
What's that?
That's the place in Ireland. She's from the city in Ireland.
Oh, okay. So when I said New York, you're like, aren't you listening? Got it. Okay. I knew somewhere I missed it. I knew. And and is your dad gone out of your life at that point when your mom moves to Canada?
No. My dad was I went back to Hong Kong every summer and stayed all summer with my dad until I was 18. And he was a big part of my life. He passed away right before I started this business, and he was a lifelong martial artist. So he would have gotten a real kick out of all of this. I actually flew him here, and he'd gotten colon cancer, and I took care of him here in the States until he passed.
And do you have siblings?
I have 2 brothers. Yeah.
Wow. And are you the oldest?
I'm the middle child.
No.
Yeah, both my brothers are military, federal agent type things. I'm the black sheep.
There's a Forrest Gump quality to your story. When I hear you being interviewed on other podcasts, you put your head down and you go, and it seems like your life has just flowed. There is you work hard, you see opportunities, you roll. Your demeanor obviously is just so you have such equanimity. You're chill. And we'll go back and fill in some of the things I'm referring to. But do you see yourself as like that? Sort of like a Labrador. You see a ball, you chase it. You don't worry about too many other things. You just are laser focused and go.
I don't know. People have told me that I'm chill. I don't know. I feel like I can be emotional. I get emotionally attached to clients. I get, but I feel like I have to be chill because this, certain times in this business, it spikes up and it spikes down, and yeah, I mean, you have really no choice other than to keep your head down and keep moving forward. Otherwise, you can get stuck in either one of those positions, and nothing good comes from that.
I guess more what I mean is if I would have asked you 25 years ago if you would be the CEO and founder and a manager of a
Yeah, no,
no, right, yeah.
No, I had an ad agency for 13 years before I started this business. And I was running that. I started that when I was in college, back at VCU. And I thought that was what I was going to do. I've always been a creative, artist, designer, whatever you want to call it. So I thought that was going to be my life, and I enjoyed that. And I was lucky and fortunate to be able to have that as my first business, and it was successful. And like I was passionate about that, but I fell into this just because I was behind a computer all day, at that job, and I was getting out of shape. I was getting what I call computer body, and I joined this martial arts gym, mixed martial arts gym, because I saw there was a boxing ring in it, and I was like, okay, so this is real. This is not like katas and karate and stuff like that, because I did that as a kid, and I just don't think that was very functional, practical in real life.
You wanted something that you could use at the ATM if something got squirrely.
I wanted something, yeah, like that, and I wanted to be able to, yeah, that's basically it. And yeah, I joined that gym, and from there, my coach slowly he found out that I owned this ad agency, and he asked me if I would help him promote a local show. And I said, okay, I'll do it, but I'm not going to pay any more gym dues. It'll be my trade. And from there, we ran a little show here in Richmond, and I brought in a special guest as part of the marketing plan was to bring in fans. I brought in Jens Pulver, who was the first UFC lightweight champion, but he was just coming off of hosting or coaching the Ultimate Fighter reality show at the time, so he was hot at the moment. And also, he's a legend, so I feel like he's always going to have that presence about him. And he and I hit it off, and he asked me if I would be his agent. He was like, man, he's like, business needs somebody like you. I showed him my office downtown and everything. And he asked me to be his agent. And I had no clue. I was a fan. So I was like, oh my God, Jens Bulver asked me, so I said, okay. And I just did it. Like you said, Labrador, I guess I ran when he threw that ball at me. And he said, he was making his return to WEC for Zuffa, fighting Cub Swanson, and I did it. And from there, I was just hoping I did a good job. I had no clue what I was doing. I just used all of my marketing knowledge and branded and packaged him and made him look as slick as possible. Used all of my corporate contacts to sponsor him up. And I guess everybody noticed when he walked in the cage that night. He was one of the sharpest looking guys with the most sponsors, most unique sponsors. And from there, another fighter named Jeff Curran introduced himself to me, and the phone started ringing from that point forward, and I had to balance which business I was going to stay in, because I was really passionate about both. But I felt like I was at the door of, the ground level of AOL, like the janitor that got stock. When this started, I felt like, oh, the doors keep opening for me, I better keep walking through them. So I did that, and it got really squirrely at one point because SuckerPunch was not making the income that my ad agency was making. And I had a couple of houses, and I ended up having to pay mortgages, for like 9 months on a credit card, which was pretty scary. But I kept thinking I'm doing something's right. Something's happening right, because I'm talking to people on the phone that most people couldn't pick up the phone and call. So, one day I remember, and I still have the mindset today. I remember all the bills were paid 1 month. And then I was like, shit. Okay, let's not say anything. And then the next month the bills were paid again, and I didn't say anything, and again and again. And here I am now 14 and a half years later, and I still think that, but it's, it was the best move that I ever made, because I still use my marketing knowledge and background in this business today. I'm just marketing people instead of companies.
So many things. I did hear this story. I listened to a couple other podcasts you were on. One of the things I found interesting, nuance, but that you say that you traded your gym you traded your work for your gym membership, but you had already paid for the year. So you paid your gym membership for the year, and you'd only been there 2 months, and then you made the trade. So you were out 10 months membership, and that's.
But I've been training there. I've been training there for over 10 years now, and I haven't paid the gym dues since. So. And Brian Crenshaw, my coach, is one of my good friends now, and we help each other whenever we can, and so there's no issues.
And I like that story because I think that's a trait that I have also, that I would go in somewhere and I would want to pay for the year and I would be done with it. And I would do it for two reasons. I would recognize that this guy's a business owner and he needs to make money. I don't like people like asking people like, I would never ask my jujitsu, where my kids go and do jujitsu 5 days a week, for a deal on a membership, unless I was desperate and needed it, because I need that place to succeed. And so I just love the fact that you did that, because it shows your investment in somewhere that it's your life and you're going to bring your entire life there 3, 4, 5 days a week and give your life to that place.
Yeah.
And so,
I knew I loved it, right? You know, it was extremely different than anything I'd ever done. And I knew I was hooked. So I've been training ever since. So.
Hey, that AU is cool on your name also, because I'm sure you know this, but it's the someone
People
told me on
say it's gold.
yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, are you that cocky where you think you're gold?" And I was like, "Oh man, I didn't
so
think
awesome.
about that."
Last night I had
gold or something. No.
we had a live show last night, and I was telling people you were coming on the show, and I don't know, I was pontificating on what AU meant, and that's what people threw out there, that it's the gold in the periodic chart.
Definitely not that egotistical.
And will you tell, there was another part of the story that I really liked about when you were, how the concept in your head of how you made the sign, the clothing for Jen Plop. What was his name?
Jens Pulver.
Jen's Pulver. We talk about that, about the packaging, the inspiration, what it came from. Do you remember that part of the story you were telling?
You know, when it was so long ago, and it was, you know, in my head, I'd followed the UFC since the very beginning, so I was a huge fan, and in my head, it was big. When I got inside the inner circle of it, I started seeing that the infrastructure was nothing. The only thing that was big was the actual UFC. The companies that took care of the fighters and the sponsorships and all that stuff, there was nothing there. So it was kind of like the Wild Wild West. So back then, people would get their sponsors. They'd have a black vinyl banner thrown over the cage, and they'd just throw logos up like postage stamps all over it. And then the fighters would come out wearing, you know, red shorts with a green shirt, and nothing was packaged. And the sponsorships that were represented on the athletes weren't represented appropriately, in my opinion, as a designer and a marketer. So I took that opportunity to, in my head, when Jens walked to the cage, I told myself he was going to look like an action figure. You know, when you buy I used to collect GI Joes when I was a kid, and the packaging for them, they used to have the cardboard background, and then you'd have the little action figure standing inside the little plastic bubble. And I wanted Jens to look like that. I wanted everything to match. So I wanted, and all of the sponsors that were taking care of them, I wanted to have the appropriate hierarchy on them so that they would get the fair play on TV as well. So when he came out, that's what I did. I designed it. He looked like he was wearing a uniform, and he looked like an action figure. And when he stood in front of his banner before the fight, when his name was being announced, it looked like he had that cardboard backing of the action figure toy package. So that was kind of my thought.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And then immediately you got another client because of that.
Yeah, Jeff Curran, who is also now still one of my best friends. He's retired now as well. He's a pioneer and a legend as well. Big Frog. He fought in the main event that night against Uriah Faber, and I had seen Jeff on the reality show Tap Out, and I remember watching that show. I actually liked him a lot because, yep, that's him. I actually liked him a lot because the way he carried himself, because the guys from Tap Out were crazy. They were like throwing fireworks in the gym and stuff like that. And Jeff was like, guys, we got to train. You know, like he settled everybody. He took the role of what you would think a leader would do, and calmed everything down so that we could just focus on training. So I liked his demeanor then. And I actually walked up to him after the show and introduced myself to him and just told him that. And then I guess the following week he got my number from Jens or somebody, and he ended up calling me. And he asked me if I would represent him too, because he liked what I did with Jens. And then he said that he would give me his entire fight team. And at that time, Jeff had one of the biggest gyms in the Chicago area and a huge fight team. So he gave me all of the athletes in his gym to represent. And I was like, man, I'm on my way, you know. Still wasn't making any money, or not much. And then, yeah, it just kept growing from there. You know,
What year was this?
2007.
You know, what's interesting about that paralleled in my, and how old are you, Brian?
50.
Okay. I'm 49. I turned 50 in March.
Okay.
In 2006, I came across this thing. I was producing some shows for ESPN, some arm wrestling shows, and I came across a guy who was really buff, and he's one of the security guards there, and we started talking. He told me he did this thing called CrossFit, and he told me about how he worked out, and I just thought he was lying because there's no way anyone does that stuff. And then I went home and I looked online, and yep, there was something called CrossFit that was pretty wild. This was in 2006. And somewhere in 2006, I emailed the owners of CrossFit, Greg Glassman and Lauren Glassman, his wife at the time. And I said, hey, you guys need videos on your website. And you remember the web then was slow as shit. Like people were afraid to even put pictures on the web. Like then the sites wouldn't pull up fast enough. Right.
Right.
But they started making me have videos for them. And then flash forward, I ended up being there for 15 years. And I worked the first year there for free. And then by the end, I was the media director, went from 300 gyms to 15,000 gyms. I was maybe the top executive in the company. Yeah. And I just climbed the ranks and I just stayed. I just put my head down. I was living in my motorhome at the time. Just, you know, anytime someone would call me, I would just go out and make a show for them or a commercial or whatever. But I was just living the dream on the beach. And, it's funny that it happened right around that same time.
Huh. Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool story.
And I think Greg, and I'm not sure if I was in the meeting, we met with the Tap Out guys, and I think that their story is basically they made a fortune on t-shirts, right?
Oh, they made a killing. Yeah.
I think they flew out to Prescott to meet with Greg in a G5 or something like that. Or maybe they didn't have a G5 then. Maybe it was a G4. They were killing it.
They were a huge company at one point. Everybody had it.
What happened to them? Did just brands come and go? Does no one wears Tap Out anymore? Or?
Well, you know, Charles, the owner, passed away in a tragic car accident.
Oh shit! I didn't know that.
They call him. He was called Mask. He was the one that had the face paint, and Scrape and Punk Ass are the two others that were his partners. Once he passed away, he definitely was the visionary for, you know, putting the brand out there. I know Dan and Scrape, they were also doing a lot. Dan was a lot of the business infrastructure behind the scenes, but I think Charles was the guy that really pushed the marketing and really pushed the boundaries with everything. And once he passed away, I think it took a personal toll on all three of them. Yeah, that's him in the middle there, because they were all best friends. I think I don't know how far back they went, but they were very, very close. And when that piece of the puzzle was gone, I don't know if they had the motivation to keep it going. So I think they sold the company or the licensing rights to the company to another company, which took it over, and they don't really have anything to do with it anymore.
That you know what's, I'm just thinking this. So I'm a huge fan of the UFC, and I'm trying to get more into MMA in general. You know, I'm trying to broaden my interest to Bellator. There's only so much time in the day, right? And if you're just into the UFC, it's 3 hours every Saturday. And then if you want to dip into the Contender Series and Tough, and now you're interested in Bellator, now you're going to Europe to Cage Warriors. It's like, my God, this is getting to be ridiculous, too much. But that being said, I love the UFC. I love Dana White. I love everything they stand for. I think it's sort of a. Sometimes I wonder if it's a. You know, I don't eat sugar, but sometimes I feel like enjoying fighting is like eating sugar. It's like almost like a.
Yeah, it's a pretty pure sport, you know, and everybody says, is it fixed, you know, and like everybody says boxing is fixed and stuff like that. No,
people say that. That's funny. I've never thought that.
Boxing?
Well, I've thought, I mean, back in the day when I was a kid, I would hear stuff like that about Don King, but you know, I was in the 4th grade and kids on the playground.
I don't know. I don't know the intricacies of boxing as much. I can tell you that when you get a boxer that's like got a record of like 30-0, you know, there's probably 27 people on that guy's record that shouldn't be there, like that type of thing. But I don't think that. I mean, like, I don't think that there's. I can't see where anybody is taking a dive. You know, like, oh, I'm going down in the 3rd. I mean, I'm sure it's happened, and
But you mean more fixed, like imbalanced workouts, imbalanced fight matches. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where the UFC does not really do that. You know, the UFC is, everybody in the UFC is good. Every single one of them. And the sport is getting so popular now that there's even fighters in, I mean, these smaller shows, Cage Warriors, Titan, CFFC, LFA, all these shows have fighters that are UFC caliber guys that could come up, and they do. This is where the UFC pulls their athletes from. They pull them from these regional shows, and these guys burst onto the scene, and, sometimes they're destroying people right out at the end of the, where's this guy been this whole time,
And where I was going with that, the tap out thing and the UFC thing is, I would never wear UFC gear. I just wouldn't. I'm not interested in anyone thinking that, like, I think I'm a fighter. I'm not, like, I just think of UFC gear, but I would wear tap out gear maybe. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, that's what tap out took off. I think initially tap out blew up because when you wore a tap out shirt, you immediately felt tougher, and a lot of people did that, because they were like, oh man, he's wearing a tap out shirt, he must know how to fight, and that's
well,
that's,
shit, then never mind, I'm not wearing that.
no, I mean, but that's why it exploded, because there was a certain level of confidence behind that brand. But then what happened is, like Van Dutch, everybody had it.
Right.
And that's when it started to lose a little bit, I think. But I honestly think it was when Charles died is when it all. Who knows where that company would be right now if he was still around.
I don't think anyone should be wearing a CrossFit shirt who doesn't do CrossFit either. I mean, whatever that means, I don't think that. But like my mom's 77 years old. She's been doing CrossFit since she's 69. She puts on a CrossFit shirt and she wears it to her book club reading. And like, all the other women know that my mom will fucking outrun them. If there's a fire in the building, she's gone. You know what I mean? They know that she'll run down the stairs. They know she can do a pistol. They know she can, back squat 80 pounds. Like, and you should wear that shit with pride. You should know that, like, yeah, I go to the gym 3 days a week and I hurt.
Yeah. I also don't see a problem with, if you're a fan, like if you're a Motley Crue fan and you have a Motley Crue concert tee,
right.
It doesn't mean you think you're singing with Motley Crue, but
right.
You're a band member now.
Right.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with fans wearing it. I think, MMA has, I mean, I will say they have the best fans and they have the worst fans. Like, and I think a lot of sports say that, but MMA fans can be incredible, but they can also be the biggest bunch of assholes you've ever met. So, because everybody's got to criticize. Oh, keep your hands up. He only dropped his hand when he threw. Shut up. Like, unless you're gonna do it, shut up. But yeah. But I don't have a problem with when I see people wearing the shirt. I think it's cool to see that the sport's growing.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I just see and it's my own hang up. But with CrossFit, I sort of see it as a cult. And I don't say that with any negative or pejorative, nothing derogatory. I just see it as a cult. Just like it, I don't wear a cross because I'm not a Christian. You know what I mean? Like I just sort of see it that way. But yeah. I'm trying to think. I saw you said something about like the fights aren't set up and good fighters fight good fighters and the UFC is the real deal and everyone's good. I was just seeing who might fight Daniel Rodriguez next. Oh yeah. So there's two guys who could be superstars. Daniel Rodriguez, he's the welterweight, and then I saw Kevin Holland is dropping down to welterweight, and that they might match these two up. And there's a perfect example of two guys that they might want to preserve to meet like in 3 years, right? Or in 2 years. You have these two guys who are amazing, but instead they might throw them in the same cage in February, and we might see these.
Yeah, it could happen. It just depends on, when a fighter changes weight classes like that, their ranking doesn't necessarily stay. So they kind of become fair game to anybody that might be a good test for them in that new division. So the UFC does not, there's seldom do I see them trying to protect anybody when it comes to matchups. They want to put on good fights, exciting fights, and that's where it's at. I'd love to see Kevin Holland, down there and see what he can do. He's an exciting fighter.
Yeah, and Daniel Rodriguez is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think a lot of people see your job as kind of the dream job. I went to UC Santa Barbara and there was the kids who like wanted to be managers so bad, right? And they collected bands, the local bands, and they would have like 10 bands that, lived in town, and they sort of played they put the cart before the horse, so to speak. They started playing manager and then got the bands. And I've made 10 movies, 10 documentaries, maybe more, and I never viewed myself as a director of movies. I just couldn't, for some reason.
Yeah,
I
and
just made movies. Do you see yourself like? So go ahead. Yeah.
that's the other part of it, for in the MMA space, like I told you, when I got in, it was the wild, wild west. There's no certifications to be a manager or to do anything like that. If you could get to know people and put together your own roster and represent them properly, you keep moving forward till the next day. Um, and it's still kind of like that today. There's no real certifications. I mean, there are established companies, and thankfully we're one of them. But there are people coming in this sport every day that are trying to be managers, and they don't know. I feel hypocritical saying they don't know what they're doing, because I didn't know what I was doing. But I mean, they come in. I think the biggest mistake they make is they come in and they're thinking the UFC is now, when I thought it was big back then, well, it's huge now. It's even bigger now. So they're coming in and they they fill their fighters' heads with expectations that are not correct. And they're like, oh, you should have a Nike deal, or you should have this and that. Like, it's not there yet. You don't even compete in shoes, So it's a lot of rookie managers come in and kind of muddy the water a little bit there. And sometimes they go to other companies and they come up in the other companies, and that's fine too. But again, the biggest problem you see there is that these guys don't know how to develop their own clients, so they go out and they try to steal clients from other management companies, and then they talk about what they're going to promise the moon to these athletes, and you would hope that the athletes are smarter than that, but sometimes they aren't. People get in people's ears. It happens in Hollywood. It happens in all other sports. And that's what you're always constantly battling.
In CrossFit, there's an athlete named Matt Fraser. He won the CrossFit Games 5 times. He ended up getting a big Nike contract. He's got a huge following. And when basically CrossFit followed the same path that what you were saying. And his manager, Matt O'Keefe, is in similar shoes to you. He met Matt. He wasn't a manager. He started managing Matt. They built an insane friendship. Matt became a superstar. And along the way, O'Keefe was really good to him, really good to his career, a really positive influence. They had great synergy. And now this guy, Matt O'Keefe, has all the biggest athletes in CrossFit. He's got the biggest events. He's got an incredible reputation. And they grew each other through the relationship. And he talks similar to you. I think he would refer to Matt as his best friend.
Yeah. I mean, I could see how that industry and sport would grow in a very similar fashion, because it did kind of come up pretty quickly and grow very fast. I don't follow it, but I've been approached several times, on if we would take on CrossFit athletes and stuff like that, but it's just not my wheelhouse. I don't want to, and yeah, MMA wasn't my wheelhouse when I started either, but I feel like I know this sport, so I can speak confidently about it. I don't know the CrossFit end at all. I didn't follow it before or any of that. So, we're staying focused and, happy to do what we're doing.
You say you're staying focused. You say, but there is creep. You have great clients like Paul Felder who are forcing you to get into TV, movies.
Yes. Well, I mean,
and I'm so excited when I see that, by the way, because my question to you is like, is he taking on actors and actresses? Would he take on an NBA star? And I'm like, oh shit, his clients are going to force him out of UFC, not out as in like to leave it, but to expand.
Yeah.
Yes.
If the path goes there, like everything in all business is about networking, and who and how you get to know the people. So as I get to know people in the Hollywood end, and I recognize my clients coming up that have the personality to carry themselves there, I'm going to push that direction. And yeah, we've done great with Paul. He's one of the best analysts on ESPN, and he's got a reoccurring gig now on the HBO Max series Hacks, which he's going back to film here very shortly for the season 2. And it wasn't difficult with Paul because he's so charismatic on camera. Like he's really good, and he went to school for theater. Like he acted. There's actually pictures of him in
I had no
Romeo
idea.
and Juliet tights and stuff like that. Like he's a full blown actor, so he's very good. So and that's what I also try to focus on. Like when my clients have a niche that they're passionate about, well, that's the best way to get them endorsed by companies that they're actually organically passionate about. Paul was always passionate about being on camera and acting. So, you know, we just, fate has brought us here. I guess, it's hard to say how I still don't realize sometimes that I'm here 15 years later or 14 years later.
Yeah, I'm telling you, the more and more I hear about you, the more and more I looked at your Instagram, the more interviews I saw you do. You are literally just you remind me so much of I know it sounds derogatory because you're a smart version of it, but just Forrest Gump. You're just in this flow of your life, and life is just you're not there's not something you're chasing to fulfill some pathology of yours. You're instead just flowing, and you're just participating at the highest level. You're just being present at the highest level, and good things are happening to you. Yep. Would Rose ever take Pat's last name just to make it easy? Roseberry. Hey, Rose. Oh, and we have champion Roseberry instead of Rose. Will you say her last name for me?
Namajunas.
Namajunas. I mean, it's a great last name. It's just that there's a lot of idiots like me in the world.
You know what? As I've known them, I've never even asked that question, so I can't actually answer that.
What kind of last name is that? Namajunas.
Lithuanian.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I'll ask him today.
this guy, Durden, the fighter who beat the guy from China last week or 2 weeks ago. Did you see that? And he said
the wrestler?
I forget his name. I hadn't heard of him before. He fought the guy from China. He fought the guy from China, and then Daniel Cormier was interviewing him, and he said, "I send his ass packing back to China." And then Daniel went back to the broadcast booth and said, "When people start going there, I'm going to." I stopped the interview, and I have a little bit of a problem with that, because if he would have said, "I'm packing that Armenian back to Armenia," or that Aussie back to Australia, I don't. And if you go to this guy Durden's Instagram account, the hordes are there. The cancel culture is there trying to cancel him. And I know it's sensitive I know there's sensitivities around China right now. But do you see that as racist in any way? Like to say that?
No, there's a lot of stuff that I don't see as racist, though. I think people are oversensitive right now because of the cancel culture, and it's starting to affect and make normal people more paranoid than they would be or should be.
Yeah.
I think that DC is a pretty normal guy, but I think that, him being on TV and having the persona that he has, he might be a little more paranoid as to, what's going on. I mean, let's face it, cancel culture is ridiculous. It's gotten out of hand, in my opinion.
It's gotten out of hand times 10, in my opinion. So I'm right. I'm right with you.
I can't take it. But
and that's what's kind of cool about the UFC, right? Dana's got his fingers up in the air, like, "Fuck you, man. We got to keep this shit real. People are getting punched in the face."
Yeah, no, that's one thing that Dana has done, and he was the one. I feel like he was very responsible for bringing sports back online. Not just the UFC, but all sports followed the UFC. After COVID started, and that was because of Dana. I don't think things would have come back online as fast without him. So, credit to him on that. I'm not here to kiss his butt, but he did a great job there.
Johnny Form in the comments says, "Haven't clicked on a live so fast. Thought you had Rose on." All right. Okay. So we'll pick his brain about Rose. This is Brian Butler-Au. Did I say it right? Brian Butler-Au?
Yes.
And he is the CEO founder of SuckerPunch. He's a manager to a lot of great athletes, including Rose Namajunas. So how does that happen? How does someone like Rose, can you tell me about that relationship, how it started with Pat, and then how you got Rose, and then how you guys drifted ways, and how you guys came back together?
So Pat was one of my first clients. After I met Jeff Curran and Jeff gave me his entire team, this wave of other clients came around, and I met Duke Rufus, and Pat was training at Duke Rufus's gym at the time, and I started working with Pat when Pat first got into the UFC, and from there, that relationship grew. Rose also trained at Duke's, and I started working with Rose as soon as she turned pro, getting her into Invicta and things like that. And she was very, gosh, I can't even remember how old she was, but she was like 18, 19 years old and fighting in Invicta. And then the Ultimate Fighter for the girls came around, season 20, and I had managed several of the girls on that cast as well. So it was Rose, Carla, and Felice going into that cast. And when that came out, Rose was killing it on that show, and everybody was in the dark because they kept everything in a bubble. But all we knew is that Dana, really liked Rose because Rose was just in there finishing everybody. And then when they came out, it ended up being Rose and Carla fighting each other.
Wow.
For the belt, which was an awkward situation for me because I managed both of them, but that's happened a few times now.
Good problems to have.
I mean, people say that, but it's a very stressful situation. And anytime I have two of my guys or girls fight each other, I'm not a fan of it, because it doesn't put me in a good spot.
Boy, that's healthy. That shows you're still human, huh?
Well, I can't, I can't not give someone an opportunity because I represent the other person. You're, in my opinion, you're in the UFC, you're in the NFL now, and the Redskins are going to play the Cowboys at this level. I don't do that. I wouldn't put my clients against each other in the regional scene where I'm trying to build them up to get them to the UFC. That won't happen. But once you're in the UFC, you've done what you needed to do, and you might have to fight each other. I mean, it just is what it is. So
can we stop there real quick and explain that to people? Because it's like a pyramid, and at the regional level, you can find ways of furthering their careers without having them fight each other. But now when you're in the UFC, you're at the top of the pyramid, and there's only one staircase, and you guys both are going up it at the same time. Is that?
You're both aiming for the belt.
Yeah.
Everybody's aiming for that belt at the UFC, and who am I to say no? You can't do it because I manage this person as well. So.
Right.
But in the regional scene, there's not enough money being paid to these guys. These guys and girls, they're just fighting to try to get to the big show to make a career. So I'm not going to put two of my prospects against each other and set one of them back a year or two with a loss, because someone's losing that fight. And whoever
and
loses
losses are bad, right? Losses are bad for so many reasons, right? People love the O.
Yeah, they're bad because, I mean, undefeated is great, but if you have like a good win streak going, that's great as well, but a loss on the regional scene can set you back from getting signed to a big show, for a year, maybe even two. It depends. You after you lose, you got to put together a win streak of 2-3 fights, and that can take a year to get. And the regional scene is so shaky with how fighters don't show up. It's not as professional as the UFC because the athletes aren't making as much money. It's just sketchier. You're still weeding out the real fighters from the Facebook profile picture fighters.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how that works. And once they get to the big show, Bellator, UFC, ONE FC, all of these major shows I consider the big show, PFL. Once you get there, you might have to fight each other because you're making real money now.
When you have two fighters that you're representing that are fighting each other, how do you manage that expectation? Does it start to become like a worry of the favorites, like he's putting too much into one or another? Is that conversation had prior to the fight with both of them before it gets heated as it gets closer to the fight?
I think that topic bounces around in their heads sometimes. But I always try to address it up front. I'm like, guys, this is the matchup that's going to happen. It's like, if you want it, we can make it happen. If you don't want it, we don't have to make it happen. But I can't tell you I don't want it. You have to tell me. And if you want it, I don't like it. I don't like it whenever I see my people fight each other, but you know, like I said, it's just a tough position. So yeah, sometimes it happens, and the fighters get it in their head that I was favoring one over the other, or this and this, and sometimes I lose. I've lost fighters because they've fought each other in the big show, and even though I was upfront with it, like fighters deal with a lot of pressures, a lot of mental pressures as well. So I understand that what goes on in their head can be not necessarily rational at times, because they're in a high pressure sport, high pressure business. So
For sure.
So, how did you actually find Rose the very first time? Like, what did you see? How did she come? How did you
Pat
two
was the
cross?
one. Pat said right away when he saw her training in the gym, he's like, "Man, this girl is going to be a world champ." And I was like, "Okay." And you look at her and you're like, she's pretty small. She's a tiny girl. And she doesn't even look, she actually looks like a girl, so, but Pat was very confident in her from right away. And Pat's a bit of a savant when it comes to that too. He's a very good coach, and he's got a very good eye. And yeah, he called that out. He's
And
called every single fight that she's won too.
Wow.
And they weren't dating at the time.
No,
And they're married now, right?
they're engaged.
Engaged. Okay. So then she comes out of the Ultimate Fighter, and she starts this path, and you're her manager. And why does she, for what you can tell us without being too prying too hard, how do you guys grow apart? How does that happen?
Oh, she fought Carla coming off the show, and there was, possibly people in her ear saying that there was a conflict of interest and stuff like that. So it just got weird, she was young and didn't, being thrown into the spotlight the way she was, just thought that there was a conflict. So, she decided to take a different path for a bit. But that entire time that was going on, I was, Pat never broke off communication with me over it, and Pat was always telling me, Pat ended up taking over a lot of the and he still does now. Pat's like the main organizer for everything. But Pat would call me up and ask me questions about this, about the contract, about this or whatever, and I would always be there. I never turned my back on her. So a couple years later, things got to the point where Rose again, she got her belt back, and she was, asking, business was just getting crazy on her again. And just got to the point where I was like, Pat, man, I was like, why don't we just, I'm working behind the scenes with you so much. I was like, why don't we just get the elephant out of the room? And we met back up and we talked, and it was a really cool moment for me, because I typically don't even go back with fighters once they've left. But Rose and I got back together when she was the champ. It wasn't like, usually when it happens, the fighter will call me up after they'll fire me, and then they'll fire me when they're on a high, and then they'll call me when they've lost a bunch.
Right.
They're not going to come back or something like that. But with Rose, she was the champ. She was at the top. So it was good. And plus, like, how do you not love Rose?
She's
just a
definitely
sweetheart.
special. When your parents divorced, did they stay friends? And where I'm going with that is I'm wondering how you learn not to burn bridges. My parents are divorced, and they're extremely good friends, and it's had a
They were very
huge
good friends.
impact on my life. Their friendship.
Yeah. My mom never did anything to keep my dad away from us. And funny stories, when my dad remarried as well, and when my dad passed, my mom was on one side of the bed, and my stepmother Susanna was on the other side. And Susanna and my mom, they were very, very good friends as well. And my mom just passed away last year, and when she passed away, Susanna was there. So yeah, my mom never burnt a bridge with my dad.
And do you think that may be one of the reasons why you excel at what you do?
That's a good question. I never thought of it like that. I just, yeah, maybe. I never thought about that, man.
Are you
I
like
think that,
emotionally more mature than most people? You think you have a higher emotional IQ than most people?
my partners, would probably say different, because when I'm behind the scenes and I vent, I'm like, fuck this. And I'll send stuff and they're like, don't say that. I was like, of course I'm not going to say that, but I'm just saying it to you. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like burning bridges. I don't like to do that. I know that I've, in my long history of being in business, you never know when business can come back to you. And I've had people come back to me after 7, 8 years of meeting them, and I never did anything, crazy with them, but they were like, man, I've always respected you and liked you. Let's do business now. And you never know when it comes around. But burning bridges, I think that's the other thing a lot of, people in this, management companies in this space do. They don't care. They'll torch a bridge in a second. It's like, you're stupid, so I don't know. I just don't like to burn bridges.
Matt, what's the definition of emotional IQ?
I'll bring it up. I do. How cutthroat does it get between agents though? Because I've heard some stories of like NFL agents or like Hollywood agents going through some extreme measures to steal somebody else's client or a big name person, as far as to plant paid women in bars to seduce them so the agent could get a photo of them with another woman when they're married, headed to the room or in this hotel, just to show them and say, hey, look, here's what your agent missed. Here's what I could do for you. This is how deep we go. Is that the same similar scene in the MMA world as well?
That's some dirty shit. That's some
dirty.
Dirty shit, Matt.
It's.
And then how do you go with someone like that? Then basically they're coercing you. Yeah, like you just showed your you don't care about me. You just showed me you have no integrity.
Right, but that's only if they find out.
Well, I mean, yes, there are certain managers in this business that are that shady. I've never heard of going to that extreme, but I've heard of starting rumors to defame somebody, or just going after their clients. And it's a constant thing. I don't do that. Me and my partner, Brian Hamper, and our team, we always tell everybody right out of the gate, we will not poach a fighter from another management company, even from the managers that I can't stand. We just won't do it, because I'm just not going to get into that cesspool with them. We're going to hold ourselves to a higher fray than that. And we don't do it, but they definitely are doing anything they can to take it away. And what I don't understand is, you can look at these people and you can see they physically look like used car salespeople. And so how are you even buying their shit? Right. But I guess, if you're dumb enough to buy their shit and you're dumb enough to go with them, then you kind of deserve what's going to end up happening. And then I'll expect a phone call in a couple of years,
you need a manager to protect yourself from a manager.
I suppose.
Emotional intelligence.
It gets crazy.
Emotional intelligence, the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. Yeah, you probably got that. You probably got lots of that.
Does. Yeah, especially with the people that you used to work with, and multiple years later coming back, that really validifies that.
Anthony says in the comments, do I have to pay to get a question answer for a show? No, you have to get your own fucking podcast and invite Brian Butler on. That's how you get to ask your own fucking questions.
Emotional intelligence.
I'm just joking, Anthony. What do you want? Anthony, don't screw this up. We're getting deeper. Okay. Will he ever manage from fighters one, since he is half Asian? That's why I didn't ask the question, but we'll ask it anyway.
I do. I manage Elise Anderson. She is a atomweight that is signed to ONE FC, and she's up and coming little superstar.
Bam. Anthony, now give me your money. Is the goal always to get them to the UFC? Is that, or no?
No, it depends. Some fighters want to fight in ONE. They like the Asian culture and they want to fight in ONE. Some fighters, want to go to Bellator. I have several fighters that think they'd rather be in Bellator. There's different cultures in different promotions. So, because of that, a lot of the fighters that do want to end up in the UFC. But then you've got fighters that want to go to PFL, because PFL is just throwing out $1 million checks to people. So now that's gaining some traction, and a lot of people are like, damn, I could go there.
You had a dude win that, right? The $1 million
Two.
bucks. Two dudes. Who
Yep.
did you have win it?
Ray Cooper and Raush Manfio.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, are you just, I mean, I know you don't get the money, but are you just beside yourself? Like one of my friends just is about to win the Division II Heisman. His name's Tyson Bagent. And it's not my son, but when I think about it, I get goosebumps. I'm just like so happy for my friend. I'm like beside myself. When your fighters win that, are you just like,
That Raush, one of the guys that won at the lightweight, Raush Manfio. I was so happy for him, man. He was ready to quit. He was ready to quit the sport, and I was trying to. I've been managing him for almost 2 years, and I couldn't get him a fight because nobody would fight him because he looks like a specimen, and he had a reputation as being, a killer. And when he won it, I remember he called me. He was telling me he was ready to give up and go back to Brazil and this and this and. I said, man, just give it a little longer. And it was actually the day of my mom's funeral. I got the phone call and I got him accepted into PFL, and he just broke down crying because it was finally he could fight and actually make some money. And I had just loaned him, I don't know, like $1,000 so he could pay rent.
oh my
he
goodness.
He had no money to pay rent, so I loaned him rent money just to get him through. Then he got signed to the PFL as an alternate. He wasn't even signed originally. He was like a substitute, and went in and beat Anthony Pettis and just started beating everybody, and then won the $1 million. And now he went from having
That
zero
dude beat
cash.
Anthony Pettis?
Yep.
Holy cow.
That
Is that the 2020 or 2020?
He just won it a couple months ago.
Oh, I'm going to go back and watch the whole thing. Holy cow, that is awesome.
He didn't beat Anthony for the $1 million. He beat Anthony in the season to get him into the tournament.
I hear you. Crazy.
Yeah, so he went from having negative funds to having $1 million. He's bought himself a car. He's got a nice apartment now, and now I'm trying to. Yep, now there he is with his new car. Trying to help him. He's just great. He could not. The funny thing was he couldn't wait to pay me pay us the management fee, which was. The management fee out of his purse was more money than he's ever had in his life. When you win $1 million, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it was just really cool, and he's super grateful, and he's just a super nice guy. So I was so happy for him and his family.
Are you personally good with money?
What do you mean?
Like Brian Butler, like, are you smart with money? Like your own personal finances and like paying your bills and like,
yeah, I like to think I am.
Look at that bar he's sitting in, baby.
Yeah, did he? And the reason why I ask is, do you give advice to those guys?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I do.
You do.
But I don't claim to be an expert. I claim to have made my own mistakes, and now I can tell them how to avoid it. And I put my money into, I put my money into real estate.
Yeah, me too.
That's where I go. I've got a little bit in the stock market, but for me, I want to have control, and the real estate's kind of where I put stuff.
I put money in real estate because it's kind of like saving it. Like I just put all my money in real estate because that way I can't spend it.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like I know I'm not good with money, so I just put everything in real estate. So the second I get a big chunk of money, I just pay down mortgages. I just buy another house. I just keep pushing forward in real estate. And boy, since shit's hit the fan, it's been so fucking great. It's the ultimate parachute to have a property that's paid off and people paying rent. That's another thing. A lot of people will tell you, hey, it's not smart. The interest rates are so low. Don't pay off your property. Just get more property. I didn't do that. I just paid off property after property after property. And holy shit, if I wouldn't have done that, and I have 3 little kids, I'd be screwed.
Yeah.
That makes me happy. So you're 1 year older than me. You're into real estate, and we both have Forrest Gump tendencies. I'm really liking you. I worked at CrossFit Inc., and it was a privately owned company, and it was run by one of the smartest human beings, I believe, to ever walk the planet. It was a man named Greg Glassman, and he was singularly focused, and he basically defined fitness. Fitness didn't have a definition before Greg came along, and he defined it in the sense that he gave it a scientific definition, a work capacity across broad time and modal domains. He brought physics to it, and he quantified what working out so that it could be measurable and repeatable, like real science. And his dad was the head scientist at Hughes Aircraft. So his dad, was a military guy and, a rocket scientist. And so Greg was brilliant, and he owned this. He basically grew this thing to 15,000 gyms in 162 countries. It was growing faster than Starbucks and Subway combined. He made the barrier to entry super duper low. You basically just had to take this 2-day course. And people who would take the course would be like, and I believe it too, because it changed my life. Holy shit, this 2-day course is better than the 4-year degree I got from Tennessee Tech in physiology. Like, it was so fucking applicable, and it changed people's lives. And he would always say, I didn't invent anything that I'm telling you a 12-year-old could learn on the internet, but I've just put it all together. He was singularly focused on one thing. He owned the entire company. It was the health and wellness and longevity for all of mankind. He didn't take any money from Coca-Cola. When he did take money from Reebok, when they put out a shoe that said, this shoe makes your butt firmer, he went on Twitter and was like, fuck, you guys are idiots, even though they gave him $350 million. You know what I mean? He didn't give a fuck. Then he got canceled, and he chose to sell his company. And his company was bought by venture capitalists, and Greg vanished off into the sunset, and he's richer than God now. He's still a good friend of mine. I think he'll be coming on the show, and he's sending his jet out to come get me next week. I'm going to go spend a week with him in Scottsdale. Yeah, I'm bragging. And so now the company's owned by venture capitalists, and Greg had a moral obligation to, do you know where I'm going with this, Brian?
No.
Not yet. Greg had a moral obligation to these 15,000 gyms to stay the fucking course. 50,000 jobs. It's a small business miracle what CrossFit is. And now these venture capitalists own it, and they have a I don't know if it's a moral obligation, but they have an obligation to make money. And they've already taken Monster Energy drink on as a sponsor. And it's a different beast. Yeah. So when I originally was looking into you, I saw that you deal in the same property that CrossFit did, human beings in their lives. There is no one's selling 2 hours of their life for $10 million. There's no price you can put on it. Our lives are invaluable. And so you're managing these people's lives, and a company comes along and says, hey, we want to buy you. And this company is public. It was Alliance MMA, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you get into bed with them and you sell to them. And so then I'm seeing that, and I'm like, oh shit. Wow. As I'm researching you, I'm like, this is kind of crazy. How is he going to be true to his people, but also be true to the almighty dollar? And then as I dig more, I see that you pulled out of the deal. And I'm like, holy shit. Yeah. Because I don't think people realize until they're in the position you're in how venture capital and going public and all that shit, I mean, it's savage. Yeah. I mean, you look at Pfizer. I mean, I don't mean to open a big rabbit hole, but like it's money at all costs. Yeah. Money before everything. Can you, sorry for the long-winded description, but it's fascinating to me because right now CrossFit, when Greg sold it, he left, so he can't pull the deal back, right? But now there's these 15,000 gyms and small business owners, and I don't think that they understand what they've gotten themselves into. They went from a sole proprietor who only cared about health and fitness to this company that now wants money. Can you share anything about your experience? I'm really curious how you pulled out and why you pulled out. If you can, what you saw that was like, hey, I don't want my fighters involved in this.
Well, it was the business model itself. When they came to us and approached us, there was a certain model that was going to happen, and we were the only management company involved. Other than that, it was a bunch of regional show promotions that they were trying to link together and create this NCAA type of web for athletes to come in and come up and go to the UFC. So because of that, I knew in my head, I was like, there's no way you're going to get all these promoters to get along and this. But they were certain, and they had all this money to do it. And I said, well, if it works, it could be great. I just don't think it's going to work. Because of that, we protected ourselves on our own island inside the company. So I made sure that, our bank account stayed separate, and that we had our autonomy to do what we wanted, because I knew that we were also the biggest money generator involved with the company. So I had to protect ourselves. We got in and things were good for a little bit, and then they started falling apart because there was too many cooks in the kitchen. And then, when it started going south, people started pulling out and wanting to get out. We were like, all right, well, we're out, and there's nothing you can do about it. You don't have my Rolodex, you don't have my network and this and that. They were like, well, don't go, because we're going to sell the company. We're selling the company to a company in the UK. I don't know what they were doing. And I was like, well, if you want, and they needed us on the books to do it because we were the ones showing profit. I said, okay, we'll stay on. I was like, but part of the deal is, when you do sell, number one, we basically get money again for staying on, and I get everything back, rights to my name, because they were going to keep the name of SuckerPunch and everything, which I didn't really care, but I threw it in there, and they sold the company to this company in the UK, and we got paid again, and I got everything back, and I never gave up any control to the company for that jeopardized any of our athletes the entire time.
I apologize if I missed it, but what was there? Why did you? So you got out not because you were being compromised, that you didn't feel that the athletes were being compromised. You're just saying that the company wasn't organized enough to fulfill their vision.
A mess. We never let the athletes get compromised from the beginning.
Okay,
that's why I put ourselves on an island to where we had control. And if somebody was the CEO of Alliance would try to tell me something like, you're gonna do, I'm like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Really?
Okay. I had a personal agenda in asking you that question. I wanted you to tell me something like, yeah, they wanted all of our clients to carry Coca-Cola in their backpack everywhere they went. And I was like,
no,
fuck
they
that.
didn't
I ain't
do
doing that.
We wouldn't,
I thought there was going to be some, okay.
Yeah. We wouldn't allow them to do that. Like I said, I knew we always had the steering wheel during that whole, journey. And there were some good parts to it. I met some good people. But like I said, there's no way I was going to compromise and let our clients get taken advantage of during any of that. And got in and out.
Do you like interacting with people?
I do.
You do?
I do.
Yeah. How about new people? Do you have you don't have any social anxiety?
I have social anxiety speaking publicly, doing podcasts.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. That's why I ask. I'm wondering if you just pursue stuff that you're uncomfortable with.
No, I don't do too many of these, but I don't get asked too often either. But I just do. I don't know. I just, like you said, go with the flow.
Yeah, I actually can't believe you agreed. Did any part of the reason you agreed to do the podcast? I just realized I had I had one of your fighters on.
What, Dalton?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good dude.
He's a good dude. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. that was a really fun podcast. I really enjoyed him.
Just booked him to fight.
Can you tell us who?
No.
Oh. Can you tell us the date?
I know it's on my phone, and actually my low battery warning just came up, so I might have to plug in.
Oh shoot! What a great guy! And so how do you find someone like Dalton?
Dalton was referred to us from one of my other longtime fighters, Sabah Hamasi. I went to, I guess he saw me at a Bellator event with Sabah and saw how I was interacting with Sabah, and when he was under another management company at the time, and then when he got free of that contract with them, he actually had mentioned to us that he wanted to talk to us, and I told him, I was like, I can't really talk to you until you're out of your contract. And then when he got out of his contract, he said he just really loved the way that I interacted with my client Sabah and the relationship we had, and it seemed like I cared and all this, which I do. And he wanted that, and we started talking, and he came over when he was able to.
So that no poaching thing is serious.
Yeah, I just won't do it.
with a man of integrity. Is there boundaries that you set when it comes to serving your fighters? And what I mean by that is, if one of them calls at midnight and says, "I need XYZ," are you picking up the phone and answering that call, or are you
If I
saying,
hear
"Hey,
the
I'm only
phone ring,
from
I'll
9 to 5"?
if I hear the phone ring, I'm picking it up. That's a
Um,
fact.
I worked at this home for disabled adults for 5 years. I lived in the driveway in a car there. I made a movie about it. It's called Our House. Won 30 Film Festival awards. Anyway, enough bragging about myself. And there was a lady who worked there with me, right? The entire time I worked there. Her name was Haley, and she had a boyfriend. And when I started there, I was low man on the totem pole, and I was just a barefoot hippie homeless guy. And I rose to like having 20 people work for me, and I was living in the driveway in a motorhome, making like $22 an hour, just balling. And there was a lady there. She climbed the ranks with me, and she was my assistant. And the whole time she worked there, I was like hitting on her and flirting on her subtly, but I really liked her. I mean, shit, I was 23, 24 years old, and she was beautiful, crazy thick red hair, so hot, so smart, so just compassionate. But she told me basically, hey, as nice as she could, hey, fuck off, I have a boyfriend. It was very like, you have no fucking chance if I have a boyfriend. And now she's my wife, but like the integrity, right? Like, I'm like, well, that's, you passed the test. Like, if she would have fucked me, I would have been like, probably could have ruined the whole thing.
Right.
But like, now I know this girl, like, and she told me, and then when she broke up with her boyfriend, she basically said to me like, hey, I don't have that boyfriend anymore. If you're interested in courting me, you may continue. And so I was like, fuck yeah, I'm interested in courting you. You know what I mean? Like, let's go get a cup of coffee now.
Well, good for you. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It just made thank you. It just reminds me of what you said about Dalton. You tell Dalton, hey, sorry, you're dating someone, and I don't date people who date someone, and I'm not interested. And I'm not only do I not date those people, I'm not interested in being in the collapse of the relationship. I'm not interested in partaking in that narrative. And then he comes back, and you're like, okay, that's really, that's hardcore.
Yeah, I mean, he's good friends with Sabah, and he sees Sabah, been with me for forever. So I guess that's most of our business comes that way, either through a coach from a gym that we know, they refer us to clients, or from other fighters of ours.
Are you? What do you do? What are you doing these days to stay in shape? Do you train daily?
Yeah, I do Muay Thai.
Anything else? Do you have do you ride a salt bike or an echo bike,
No,
or you go running, or?
No, I'm not a big runner. I'll do jump rope, some light weights and kickboxing.
And the jump rope and the light weights are to warm up for the kickboxing?
The light weights are just because I'm 50 years old now and I need to do something to stay firm. The kickboxing doesn't, keep you firm. It's good cardio and good exercise, but I need some sort of light weights. I'm not a big weightlifter either, so.
And your son, you're holding mitts for your son, I see in a video on your Instagram.
Yeah. Both of my kids, I train both of them.
How cool is that? And you train them? Are you freaking out right now because your phone's about to die?
It's getting close.
If it dies, don't worry. The show's over. It's my show. It can just end. And do you get along with your kids when you're training them? How does that go?
Yeah. No, I get along great with them. I look forward to training with them. And it's awesome to see how good they're getting. My younger son, my older son's in college, so I don't train with him as much. But my younger son he can throw. He can hit harder than me now, I think.
Do you have any inner conflict in regards to what happens in the fight game, that it's two human beings hurting each other? Do you reflect on that?
No, I mean, because I've done some amateur fights and it's just fun. I feel like everybody should at least do a little bit of something, just for your own confidence and for your own ability to protect your family or whatever. Also to get over that fear, of holy shit, I'm getting ready to do this. But obviously I don't ever want to see anybody get hurt seriously. And that's a very rare thing, but that's the same thing in football or any sport, right? So there's always inherent risks, but Yeah, I don't think I've ever been regretful of anybody participating.
I don't remember who we had a fighter on. I don't know. I'm trying to think. Maybe it was Volkanovski, but someone said that there's no better way to look at yourself. There's like, hey, because I fight, because I get into the ring, they basically said I know myself in a way that like no one else can know themselves unless they get into the ring and fight. And in that way, I really respect the journey. But from the outside, sometimes I feel bad. You know, I just like I have a unhealthy appetite for, but I mean, I don't enjoy like other kinds of violence. I'm not like into car
Yeah.
accidents and shit. But for
Yeah,
some
yeah,
reason,
yeah.
I get excited. So for some reason, I get excited on Saturdays, and I watched the Tiafimo fight. Did you watch that?
No,
Oh,
I didn't.
Why didn't you watch that?
This weekend I had like 27 family members in my house, and yeah, I didn't have time for much. So, yeah, no, I think that, I don't get anxiety about, because, both these athletes they've trained their asses off for this, and it's what they love to do. I understand why they love to do it, because there's a certain level of satisfaction you get out of training and being able to implement what you've trained for. And it's satisfying.
It's interesting you say that too. Matt and I are around a lot of military guys, and a lot of SEALs actually. And every single SEAL that I've known who's come home, they feel like that they need to get back in there and fight. And I go, why? Aren't you glad to be home? And they go, dude, I train 24 hours a day, 365 days a year to do one fucking job. And that job is not going to happen with me at home. And so I guess it's kind of like that. If you're a fighter, like you train to fight, and like an
those
axe needs
guys,
to split wood, right?
yeah, but the soldiers, I have a completely different level of respect for. That's actually, I mean, I
Yeah.
get it. There's a life threat when you're doing combat sports, but when those guys are going out there is a real life threat. So for them to want to do that, that's something that you have to respect. And I'm never going to even come close to trying to compare what they do to sport.
Right. I guess I just meant in the sense that when someone trains for something like military guys, and even with their life on the line, you would think they'd be happy to come home. They still want to get back in there and fight. It's that
yeah,
dedication to their craft.
Yeah.
The firefighters I work with are all itching to go on that fire, but none of them want to see anybody harmed or a house burnt down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they train the whole time. So when they get that commercial fire or house fire, they're like ready to go. They're out the door. But you speak to any of them afterwards, once the job's done, and it's still somebody else's property, somebody else's house. So nobody wants to see that, but they want to do the job they're training for. That's for sure.
Yeah, they want to get on the roof of that burning Costco and cut a hole in it and like risk their lives. Those fucking nuts. Firefighters are nuts.
That's what they do.
Brian, final question before your phone. What do you see as a uniform character trait in the most successful people you work with?
Humbleness.
Fuck, I'm never gonna make it. Can you define humbleness for me?
I think everything comes from that. If you're humble, you're approachable. Fans can relate to you, and they're going to love you. They're going to adore you. That's why Paul Felder is loved so much. That's why Rose is loved so much. That's why Jens Pulver is loved so much. Douglas Lima, all of these fighters project themselves with humility, not saying that they aren't confident, and that doesn't mean that they feel like they're lesser than anybody, but their humbleness makes them approachable, which makes them more marketable to a wider audience, in my opinion, because they're looked up to. And when people look up to you and then they find out that you're a genuine, real person, they're like, oh, they love you even more. When you get these people that go out there and they put on these shows and they put sunglasses on in buildings at nighttime and they act like they're superstars, you're not approachable at that point, in my opinion, and you lose touch with reality, and your head gets in the clouds, and that's when you start believing your own hype. So I think the key to a long career is humility and trusting your circle of people.
And I guess also with humility, that means that you believe you can still get better.
Yeah, of course. You're always learning and you can get better. Yeah.
I wonder if humility is embracing insecurity, accepting insecurity, loving your insecurities, as opposed
Yeah.
to,
Mm.
Yeah.
to,
Could
yeah,
be.
Paul Felder seems like an amazing guy. In that note, there's people like Colby Covington who I really, 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 really like.
Yes, but Colby puts on an act, which that's a different approach. It's almost like a WWE type of act. He's not really like that in person. If you know Colby in person, he's actually a pretty nice guy. He's
Yeah,
not always rolling around with models and stuff like that behind him. That's what he does to make noise for himself and to make people want. Like, he likes to be hated,
right.
but because he knows people are watching him, his eyes are set on getting views and making sure that when he fights, the people are paying. You know, so I
And
can't hate on him for that. And
right.
how he carries himself when he's around fans is totally different. He's gone off and done things to meet with soldiers and our troops, and doesn't post about it, doesn't talk to any. He does a lot of things privately that people don't know about.
Yeah. And maybe that's why I like him also, because when I do hear those things, or I do see him going the extra mile, yeah, I do see it's interesting. And I guess what I like about people is do all these great people have insane work ethics too? Like, they just nothing gets in the way. Like, they're not going to the bar.
I mean, sometimes people go to bar. I mean, sometimes you gotta. It's such a stressful job and stressful situation that you gotta let your hair down every now and then. But it's not something where you're doing it every night. But yeah, they're definitely focused on staying, you know, in their job.
I saw in that picture you also had AJ Fletcher as one of your clients. And
Yep,
we had him on the show. Another great dude. That dude was
yep.
what a
He's
great
gonna go
interview.
far.
Do you? Sorry, I said that was the last question, but this is the last question. Are there? Do they have to be a cultural fit for you? Is there a culture in your company?
I think that's a question that I say to him all the time. We can have a contract, but if we don't get along, I'm not going to be motivated to work for you, and you're not going to be motivated to trust me. So, contract or not, if the personalities don't get along, I don't care how much money you make. My drive is to. I get a lot of fulfillment and enjoyment out of the relationships that we build and the successes that come from that. I don't get a lot of enjoyment out of sucking up to anybody and being a yes man. That's for sure.
And when you say get along, who do they have to get along with?
Both of us. My partner Brian Hamper, Chris Creech, Chad Lafley, our partners in Russia. They just have to be good people, polite. Just I need to be able to tell you the truth.
Right. Is it? And does that seem to be new for a lot of people? Telling the
Sometimes,
truth? Yeah.
sometimes, AJ came to us through his coach Tim. Tim was on the Ultimate Fighter with one of my very first clients, Amir Sadala, way back in the day. I think season 7. And Tim has been tracking our company's growth the entire time. And Tim called us and was like, "Man," he's like, out of all the managers out there, I'd really like you to take care of AJ, because Tim really, AJ's his guy." So those are the type of referrals, and I know Tim knows our personality, so he felt it would be a good fit. And AJ is actually a really good, humble kid, and he's good. He's going to go places.
Yeah, he's a savage. I wish I would have learned about honesty at a younger age. I wanted to be nice, and being nice came at the price of being honest. And do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, yeah.
My parents are really nice, and so they weren't always honest.
Honest, yeah.
Yeah, because they didn't, like, you don't want to hurt someone's feelings, but really honesty is where all the freedom is, and all the integrity, and all the good people. The honesty is special.
Yeah. Well, I think you can be both.
Yeah,
You just have to make sure when you're telling the truth, you're doing it. You're not a dick about it. Like, I don't like to give bad news. I said this to my guy I was interviewing yesterday. I was like, but I wish I could give good news all the time, but sometimes I'm going to have to give you bad news. It's just the nature of the business, and I need you to trust me through that. And that's kind of the foundation to building a relationship.
awesome. Brian, do you have the new iPhone? Do you have iPhone 13, or what is this?
I have the 12.
Is that the new one?
No, I think there's one more that came out. One of our guys, one of our managers, Chris Creech, has the new one. He's always giving me shit about it.
Yeah, you need, then you'll get, I'm just saying, because then you get more battery time. Dude, thanks for coming on, Brian.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
I can't wait for our paths to cross again. This is really cool.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Souza, I guess I'm thankful to you too.
Thanks, Sevan.